Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And it's Friday, and we've got 6 games in the NBA. And in this one, we're taking a look at Portland and Philly. Portland is in Philadelphia for this one. Actually, a pretty healthy Blazers team compared to what they've been. Full discrepancy, we are recording this the night before. So it is 8.5 right now with a total of 229. But I'll let Nate get into the rest of that slate here in just a minute. We also got another game video and our player props for you. So make sure to like and subscribe and continue to follow along with us. Also head to thelines.com. That's where you can check out all the great written content we have as the NBA is in full swing up on the site right now. Also have our player props up for you in a video and on the site as well. And we are using that odds finder tool up there. Make sure you're getting the best odds available on all those bets you're making across the NBA this season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into this slate for everyone real quick and then talk about the Blazers and the Sixers.
Yeah, a lot of pick'em lines here as we open because, teams are pretty inconsistent right now. But we got Hawks in a pick'em at Washington right after beating them by 2 points 2 nights prior. Blazers have the biggest spread, I guess, here, +9 at Philly. Totals opened at 229. Excuse me, not the biggest because the Spurs, who have lost, 26 of 30 games, are +12 at home against Denver. Cavs in a pick'em at Miami. That's an immediate rematch as well. Cavs just won a low-scoring bout over them. The Nets, after posting one of the weirdest rotations I have seen in a close loss to the Bucks, are +5 here on a back-to-back in Minnesota. They should get Dinwiddie and Cam Johnson back for that one. And then another pick'em, Raptors at Lakers, 224 total. And we'll talk about that one in another episode. Here, I mean, these are two teams that are definitely going in opposite directions in the Blazers and Sixers. It doesn't take a lot of analysis to look at that. I mean, the Sixers, the thing is, they just kind of do just enough, typically. I mean, on the road recently, they've definitely done just enough. They do have the potential to just completely blow doors off a team at home. But generally what we've seen is just they score at an incredibly high rate, and they don't stop high-scoring guards on the other end. I mean, it's just the MO of a Harden Maxey team. But I mean, this is Embiid's team, of course, and extra rest here, 2 days rest, which is the biggest situation to look at for me. That I trust them a little bit more with that extra rest. It's just a question of how much are they going to pace themselves because it is so much of a two-man game with Harden and Embiid. In general, though, they are higher scoring on extra rest, 11-7 to the over with the rest advantage, going over by 5 points per game when they get 2 days off, going under by 7 points per game if it's a back-to-back, and they've gone under 70% of the time in those situations. So that tells you what they do with that extra rest, which is just, a fresher Joel Embiid who's constantly in danger of missing a game with a sore foot, basically. So if he can get a little bit of that time to come out and attack one of the worst defenses in the league, if not the worst in the last 20 games. Portland just got Nurkic back. He only managed 17 minutes and didn't really make a dent against Boston. Boston team that got right in this very same matchup. The Phillies looking to exploit. The last time Nurk faced Embiid, he could only play 24 minutes. He got into foul trouble. He had 4 points. Embiid had 32. Harden, triple-double. Harden, by the way, has 48 assists in his last 3 against Portland. Each one has come on a different team. So it doesn't really matter who he's rolling with. He knows how to dice up this team, which, used to have pretty good wing defenders in the last few years. And like we keep pointing out, they just traded them away. No Josh Hart, no Gary Payton II anymore. And Simon's being injured means, you're leaning on Cam Reddish. He let me down with player props there in Boston. He's now been discarded twice by teams that need someone at his position, and they just had no real interest in him. So it's fair to wonder how much of a vital piece he's going to be going forward. But
you can say it. The Knicks discarded him. Then he must not be that good. You could say it.
Yes, that is the team in question. The Knicks, when they were at their absolute lowest low in terms of offense last year, and they still were like, yeah, we don't have any use for Cam Reddish, but
we're good.
So it's the Sixers against a Western Conference team, though, and that is something where we tend to see a ton of points, usually when they're at a Western Conference team. But they should be able to get over their team total here, considering
Yeah.
Portland's on this exhausting road trip. They opened the All-Star break with some sort of extra travel snafu, and they haven't really recovered, and they've only been able to beat really bad teams on this road trip. But losing by double digits to Boston and Dame Lillard, I'll talk about him in player props. As great as he is right now, and I think he will be a volume scorer, there's only so much you can do when the other defense can just load up on you, and there's absolutely no one for him to kick it out to and no one else to really make plays. It's a real problem in terms of being able to compete here. So I don't really trust Philly to win by 9. I know I'm always talking about teasers. This is a good teaser spot, though, to get it down to 4.5 or 5 and take the over, which I think we like either way. So maybe you just want money line and over with those Sixers.
Yeah, I ain't mad at you. I don't feel the tease is totally wrong here, and I agree with a lot of what you said there. And I'm a little bit more focused on Philly in this one and the trends that they pose for us in this game. You talk about they're good. They've been going over on the road against the West. Well, really, they've just been going over against the West, actually. In their last 10, they've got their 8-2 to the over against the West, regardless of venue. 120 points a game in that span, and allowing 113. Winning by a good margin there, not enough to get us over 8.5 points, but good enough to get us over 229 for a total, which it's somewhat fair. But I do think that that if they get to the 120 or so, that I think that they should, and that's probably what their team total is going to be at in this one. If you look at that total, right, they're 8.5. It's going to be about 120 to 111.5, whatever you want to call it, for what their team total will be when it comes out. Like I said at the top of this video, we're recording early enough on a Thursday night, actually, that we don't have all of the bets in front of us necessarily yet. But that's what I'm focused on. They're 16-9 to the over against the West on the season. Like I told you, 8-2 at home, and against the West in those games, those 10 games at home, 15 made threes on 42%. Really, really good, obviously. And then 26 free throw attempts, which is actually kind of low for them, and 28 assists per game, which is actually up for them on the amount of assisted buckets that they're getting there. So I do like what they're doing there. I think if you look at the trends for their last 5 at home, against teams that are not Miami, by the way, because one of them is Miami in there. They had a back-to-back against them that I don't want to talk about. And the Celtics was in there as well. And those games are always tough. I mean, they've had some high-scoring affairs, I know, in the past between those two teams, but they've also had plenty of like knock them down kind of games where, they're just trapping each other all over the place and stopping what the other one does pretty well. So in sort of an Eastern Conference style game. So either way, my main point, though, is, in 3 of 5 versus the East, they still go under. They went under in those, but they went over in the ones against the West once again. And it was around a 223 total in those home games, but that was also a bit before. Like, I think the road trip did open something up for them where you saw them play at a style and a pace of the teams that they were playing against. And part of the problem was they just hemorrhaged points to point guards. I know they beat up the Timberwolves the other night, which was actually a little bit shocking how badly they beat them and only allowing 94 points to the T-Wolves at home, who had been rolling pretty well. But Ant Edwards still got us over our props that we picked him on at 32 points, 1 assist, but whatever, we still got over the points and assists as well because of all the points he scored, because that's where they're just giving up points, and that's what causes them to also play at that fast pace as well. There's almost been like a weird, like, James Harden taking it personally that the other team's guards are scoring, even though he doesn't take it personally enough to play defense. He just takes it personally enough to play harder on offense and play a little bit better and get you those points as well. So, I think Philly's not really, their defense has been pretty good against a 3, but that's where, the Blazers are going to shoot and get all their points from deep. Philly's actually allowing the 3rd most 3-pointers made and at a 41% clip over their last 5. So they are letting teams get hot from deep because, once again, the guys are creating their own shot and scoring from 3, like Ant did the other night on a couple of unassisted 3s. So also giving up a ton of free throws is Philly, and scoring off free throws, unsurprisingly. So I think there's going to be opportunity for a lot of points in that sense. And Dame will go off, and then that'll sort of propel everything, we hope.
Yeah, the thing is, though, it's a situation where you can let Dame go off. It's the old, like, Steve Nash in the playoffs situation, right, where you let him get 50, whatever. Nobody else is going to beat us. And that's the way they've guarded him in his last 6 meetings here. He's got 33 points per game on huge usage, but 5 turnovers to 8.5 assists, being like, okay, nobody else is going to be open. He's a -4 overall, and I mean, even in this tear he's been on over the last 2 months, he's a -9 because it's the only offense Portland can muster. They have no defense besides his individual defense has struggled because he's so exhausted from offense. And Philly can just come at you in waves now with these other guards. So maybe I am talking myself into -9 here. I mean, Portland is soon going to be playing for ping pong balls, and it's just Dame, kind of shouting into the wind that I want to be competitive, and there's just nobody else on this roster to help him do so.
No, they're like, okay, cool, we got you. Here's Cam Reddish, and he's like, thanks. What about Josh Hart, who's helping the Knicks to a 9-1 start as he got there, the first games in a row? But yeah, I would say the game theory that I feel like you're talking about, though, which I would agree with, is like, if Dame goes off, fine, whatever, sans that, or even regardless of that, if they don't hang, the reason this wouldn't go over is because Portland doesn't hang around, because Philly's going to get what they want, right? And how they want it on offense. So with that in mind, like, if Portland doesn't come along for the ride and it goes under, they're probably not covering 8.5 points either, right? At that point. Yeah. So tease is fine, I would say, because I do like the idea of getting it down a bunch, but like that Minnesota game is still sort of like fresh in my mind, where they only scored 94 points against this team despite Ant going for 32, which is something that you feel like could be a similar case here. And so either way, like, maybe it's more of a Philly team total on this one once that comes out, which we also love to hit when we feel much more confident in one team than the other. And the 8.5 doesn't really scare me in this situation, except for that Philly sometimes does sort of stumble along and only win by these games by like 5. See the game against the Pacers the other night. So do with that what you will. I think there's a number of ways to bet it based on all that stuff that we think is going to happen in this game Friday night. So that's all the time we have for you, though, in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along and check out the other couple videos we have up for you tonight. And until we see you next, happy betting.